If you enjoy listening to inspirational stories from people just like us, facing the fear and doing it anyway, then you're in the right place. My name is Claire Hill, and this is the No Rest for the Vivid podcast. So hello, this is episode 2. You are with Claire Hill, and this is the No Rest for the Vivid podcast. As I've just said in the intro, I don't know why I'm repeating myself, but there you go. On this episode, I have the wonderful Emma Isaacs. Emma, I met through her podcast when we got chatting on Instagram, and she invited me to interview on her podcast. And I must admit, the first time she suggested it, I was jumping up and down in my bedroom. I was so excited because I'd been listening to Emma's podcast for quite a while. I think her work is wonderful. She's got a really amazing spirit, and I think you can learn a lot from her.
Hi, Emma.
Hi, Claire. I'm so excited to be on.
Me too. I'm just going to giggle all the way through.
This is amazing.
Oh, no, I'm so grateful to have you on. You're my episode 2. You're like my first proper guest, other than my own self. So I'm really, really excited. Like, I'm proper buzzing. Also, and as you know, because you run your own podcast, it's massively nerve-wracking when you start this. Like, is anyone going to listen? But you will really listen.
I will listen, and everybody loves what you've got to say. You're the story queen. I used to watch your stories for months, let alone this. So everyone's going to be so excited.
I hope so. I'm really excited. So, Emma, you are a bit of a legend in my book, and you're. Well, do you want to say a little bit about yourself? Do you want to introduce yourself?
So I'm Emma Isaacs, thank you. I'm a designer. I've designed for 20 years, and I was a design manager for Hallmark and M&S and UKG, which is kind of like Asda, Tesco's, all of the supermarkets, which I absolutely loved. But then I realised that I loved more the helping of the designers and that side of it. So after having children, I've got into coaching, and I still freelance, but I like to talk. So podcasting just became, I thought I'd give it a whirl. And then what you're going to find out, the world that's come from that is just so addictive. And I'm loving it.
Can you remember like the moment that you decided you wanted? Where did the idea come from to start a podcast?
I went on like a creative workshop. It was a 3-day workshop, and it was kind of, I wanted to do an online course, and it was all about doing an online design course, but I knew I didn't have anything. Nobody knew who I was. So I kind of had to do the whole, got to do your branding, got to get online, all of that. And they just kept saying you need to do a podcast. And I kept thinking, definitely don't want to do a podcast. Definitely don't want to do YouTube, because I hate my voice. I know that I've got a whiny, slow voice.
Don't be daft. You do not.
It's just, that all of a sudden you feel really vulnerable. And then somebody said to me, when it's not about you, all of a sudden I had this purpose, and I just wanted people to hear these messages. There were so many designers that were falling away and not carrying on with their passion. When I stepped into that, my why, all of the little bits, your brain chatter, your monkey chatter, that went then. It wasn't about me anymore. And I think the minute that you stop thinking about you and it's about the person that messages you, because what you'll find is people will message you and say, oh, I really needed that today, Claire, thank you. Which I bet they do from your stories, and you're already doing that. I didn't have that customer relationship that you've already got.
Yeah, I must admit, I mean, we met because of your podcast, and I'd been listening to it for about 6 months before I think I'd messaged you and said,
yeah, you
I really
did
love it. But then there was an episode and you spoke about drum and bass. And then I messaged you and said, I loved that, like the fact that you were a raver as well. And then we started talking, and then I was saying, oh yeah, I raved out the church on my wedding day, and then you just said, oh, do you want to be on my podcast? And I remember being up in my bedroom as we were chatting, because we were sending voice notes, weren't we, over Instagram?
All day.
Yes, man, it's like 4 in a row. And then we started WhatsApping, so it got a bit easier. But I was like jumping up and down, like, oh my God, I'm going to be on a podcast. And it was just, I've got goosebumps actually, because it was such a wonderful experience. So it was definitely the right thing for you to do because of how you made me feel. And I mean, you're on episode 70 something now, aren't you?
Yes, 72.
Wow.
But I think just energy meets energy. And I think this is it. We're in such a great time in our lives. You know, if you look at, I don't know, dating, like now people can actually pick who they are suited to because of online. You know, it's not just like whoever was in the club that day or whoever, you know, and that's the same with creatives. We can meet people, you know, in the right kind of circles. And I think that's it with podcasts. You're going to meet the people that are going to be attracted to you for your personality. And yeah, we're just living in a really exciting time, I think.
Yeah, definitely. But also with your characters, you are mega supportive and giving. And now every morning on Instagram stories, you do your daily sermon, Sharpie sermon, as you call it.
Oh, is it because my maiden name's Sharpie and I am one of the lads rather than like the lads would all say, we're having a lads' night tonight. Is Sharpie coming? I'm like, yeah, no, I've got to be with the wives. But yeah, so I still call myself Sharpie. Well, I don't, they do.
Yeah. But that's to say, like, I'm Vid to all my friends. That's where the vid in the vivid comes from. And it is, I think that's that. It makes you feel really young though when people call me Vid. It's like, oh yeah, I used to be that really young person that went out 4 times a week and with the lads and you know whatever. But yeah.
But you had a lot of lads. Did you didn't go? Did you say a lot of your schoolmates were lads, weren't they?
Yeah. So I went to a secondary school for all girls. And then at the end of year 11, I wanted to do my A levels, and I was like, I can't deal with all of these girls anymore. Growing up as well, with just girls in the house, apart from my little brother, I was like, I just need some males. And then, and I met my best friends, my friend Sam, who walked me down the aisle, and my best friend Soph, and well, she's a girl, but it was just me and her in a room full of boys. It was. Yeah, it wasn't that, but we made some really good friends, and I think it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
That's what I mean. Yeah, I don't mean it in any kind of. I just think I've got that personality, which I know you have, where you can literally catch yourself and think, "God, I'm moaning today," which a bloke would say, you know. And I have that mentality, like, skip to the end. You're boring me now, which you can only say with a load of blokes, you know.
Yeah, I do. I've said that before, but I do think it's all about just. Am I having a laugh? Am I smiling? Am I having is there joy? No. Okay. So I'm a bit much better. I don't know about you, at just saying this is not giving me the right energy. I'm not feeling as fun. I could be having fun doing something else. And choosing.
I think as well, what a lot of people don't know about me, I don't know how much you've said, so I wouldn't want to say, you know, but for me, I don't know how people, I think, oh, it's all right for her, Miss Happy. I don't think they realise how dark my life's been.
Yeah.
And how kind of I put myself through uni. You know, I'm from a working class family. How, you know, I've had a breakdown. I walked out of a massive job as a design director design manager at 27, and I had imposter syndrome. I didn't know what imposter syndrome was in the blooming 2007 in the UK, as if I'd heard, you know. And so when you've been through that and had massive panic attacks that keep you awake all night, I didn't sleep for so many weeks that I had to, even the doctor said, go to Asda and get some sleeping tablets. Like, literally, what you're going through is torture, because you start hallucinating when you've been through something that, and it was nobody else. Like, I was doing well in work. It was all my own thoughts and not believing I could. When you've been through things like that, then obviously my dad died in my arms at 27. I'm not
you just know how you've just got a very different sat nav, and you know, kind of like you've just said, is this bringing me joy? And it's not that I'm not open to other. I am a massive empath. If somebody comes to me, I'll be all in, to the point that there's certain jobs I can't do. I've had to say no to teaching. I don't know how you've done. God, I cried on the last day for the pandemic, because there was some kids I thought, how are they going to cope?
Oh, horrific,
Yeah. So it's not that I'm hardened to it or that I don't remember it. It's just that my sat nav has become very sharp now. Exactly what you've said. I need to laugh. I need my kids to see me laugh. But then I also need to make sure that I feel it all, but not sit in it for too long. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolute sense. So when you were talking about the imposter syndrome, what happened? So 27, managing a team in a big
I didn't
design.
feel ready.
But you obviously, your talent must have been amazing for you to be in that position.
It was all me. So I came back from backpacking, and I'd been with Tiger Print for years. They were brilliant. They were who I did a year work placement with, and they offered me, I left them 3 times. You know, we have an ongoing joke now with the managers, because it's like left after my year placement, then left again to obviously go backpacking, then went back, and then left again. But they are such a great company, and they were brilliant. But they wanted me to be a design manager, and I hadn't finished. So back then you didn't learn Illustrator and Photoshop at uni, you learned it on the job. So there was a lot of people that became freelancers that wouldn't know it. And so I got promoted. Well, I still didn't know some of the packages, and I think I just kept feeling a fraud. I was briefing designers that were double my age, and I just didn't feel I had enough experience. I didn't feel ready. It wasn't work's fault. They kept saying, Emma, your stuff's amazing. Designers kept saying, we love your briefs. We come to you more than the other managers, because I kept telling them, and they knew the whole time. And but the thing is, when you're going through something like that, I could have just got signed off. Could have just had some time off for a bit, which they offered me. But when you go through something that kind of anxiety, you don't sleep. Your brain is on overload. Well, you can't have any time off. They'll think you're this. You think you're that. Nobody's as cool as your own mind.
100, definitely.
Yeah, and I was so vicious. And by the time I got to work in the morning, they'd be like, morning, and I'd have had a whole night stressing myself out to the point I was just an absolute mess. And then now when I speak to, because obviously I'm still friends, they're my lifelong friends. I don't know if there's something about your first job. We just had this tight bond. Most of them have been on the podcast, like they've all done really well for themselves, and they all say we only know because you're our friend, but we didn't notice at work. But that's the thing with anxiety, you hide it well. You know, you go within yourself. Actually, the thing is, it's not come from my parents. I was the first in my family that went to uni. There was an auntie, actually, she went to uni, but she was like famous. Your auntie Janet went to uni. It was one of them. Loved my parents, but they were working class. And my dad should have been a carpenter, but they were so proud of me and bigged me up, but they didn't know what to do with me, because my mum, bless her, she was like, she worked at Boots and loved it. And I only say this out of, she's a wonderful.
Yeah.
They adopted me, so they had waited a long time. And so my mum, when she did get me, wanted to be at home, but it meant we struggled. Dad got made redundant a couple of times. They were amazing, but the point is, they didn't understand these problems. They didn't understand about revision and so it all came from me. My mum used to say, Emma, go to bed, it's 2 a.m. What are you working for? And I'd be like, you don't understand, Mum, I've got to carry on working. I was so tough on myself. I just could see a way out of this world, this where I was living, and I needed to work harder and harder and harder. And that's the only thing and because the trouble is with that, when you're a high achiever, because you get the grades, well, of course it's right then, because it's worked for me. So I'm going to keep doing that pattern.
Yeah.
That's what got me my A-levels. That's what got me my degree. So then that's all isn't it? Well, if I do an all-nighter.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. As you know, I'm studying for this master's. I'm going to finish soon. And the last lot of assignments I didn't do as well in. And it was quite sort of like, it's absolutely fine that I didn't do as well. I'm juggling everything in the world. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And just accepting it's okay. It's okay to take a step back. Done is better than perfect, as we know anyway. But yeah, so after you left that job, what happened? Like, did you?
Wow, I got a job straight away within a couple of weeks. Me being me stressing out. Obviously, it's felt like, so I came back home. I lived in Leeds, loved being in Leeds, and I was staying on my friend's sofa because I was living with other friends, but I just didn't know what it was. And I kept flitting, and my friends were amazing. They were like, well, maybe it's just stay on my sofa till you work it out. Anyway, went back to Derby and went and got help. I went to Mind, and I went and it's called CBT, cognitive behaviour therapy.
Yep.
And I took Prozac for Prozac for a couple of weeks, but I came off it because that's when nothing. By the way, everyone should follow a path. I'm not anti-tablets at all. I just deep dived into. I'd never heard of panic attacks. Never heard of your feelings are from thoughts. That connection just wasn't something in my language at all. Took up running, honestly, or walking, whatever it is, it's literally move the body, move the mind.
You run every day, don't you?
Yeah. To me, it's my non-negotiable. Well, today I didn't, did I? Blooming overslept. The children are poorly, and I am really suffering today. The whole day's been unravelled. It's so funny how you get used to a pattern. But for me, it's just, I need to be outside. The gym doesn't do it for me in the same way. I like to see the trees and I think I am dyslexic, so don't know if it's the sensory side of it.
Yeah. And do you run even if it's raining? Like, is it that non-negotiable? How long do you?
If it's really bad, I don't, because now I've signed up to this woman on YouTube. She's a beast, but she's killing me. My body is changing. She does kettlebells. Oh my God. Because of that, the rainy days. So can you see my hands of these calluses?
Oh my goodness.
So I am taking up something else because running, it's great for that. But actually, I do need another kind of fitness, for actual muscle. And I think it's about just getting your heartbeat up. And I used to do kickboxing when I was a teenager. Now, God, I'm just telling everyone everything, aren't I? I found out I was ADHD last year. I don't know why, I still have this whole hang up. And then I really battle with myself now. I'm going to get off this podcast and go, why did you do that, Emma?
No, but that's a vulnerability hangover, and that is absolutely normal. And I do it all the time. And
right.
Absolutely, totally normal.
I'm so mad that I've done that, because it's not something we should be ashamed of, and I'm not. I'm really proud of it, and I do know, thanks to being at schools lately, how it's so celebrated. There's famous people on the wall, and they'll say she's got ADHD, he's got dyslexia,
diversity,
and just it's our superpower. And I know now. But then I still catch myself. And do you know what I think it is? It's so new that I'm still articulating it all, and I'm still working it out like, oh, that's why. And I think that's where the imposter syndrome came from when I worked. I think I was worried that I was going to get caught out. I didn't know what of, but I think I was like, because girls, the reason why a lot of girls don't get found, with dyslexia or all of the kind of spectrums as much as boys, because we mimic other girls at a really young age. Which you will know from your training. I didn't know. And so, I think that's where the imposter syndrome, I knew something wasn't right. And I think as well, that probably leads to the podcast. The more I stepped into myself and found myself, the more I'm kind of like, oh, I'm dyeing my hair pink again and stepping into it. But there's still that, what you've just said, this vulnerability thing. There's something about being a high achiever and the professional side, and then sharing this side, there's that connector that you still have to work on all the time.
And I think when you said about stories and stuff on Instagram, and like I was saying, you've done, and I know that when we first met, you were feeling so vulnerable about doing Instagram stories, and I was a bit more established in your stories. But the thing that made me do it is that I cared more about the business than I did what people think. Cared less about what people thought. So I cared more about building the business, but also I find sharing your day and that sense of authenticity that you put across, and we've spoken about filters as well, haven't we? And it's like
Yeah, I took them off, if you noticed.
I did notice, I really did. And it's the thing of just saying, this is my normal face, this is what I've got to say. But also that helps me with my thoughts of if I'm being negative about myself. It helps me just be like, that's a human face. Am I going to cover it up with this is a human voice with human life, and some days I might be extra vulnerable, but it is that feeling of, oh God, vulnerability, but it's much less now that I've got used to it. But it is, I mean, your stories every morning, I was showing my husband the other day, it's like every day you're present, you're showing that you've gone running, which makes me think, why am I not moving more? Because look at Emma, and it does cheer me up seeing the outside in the morning. And then you come up with like, what I want you to think about today is, and I'm like, yeah, I do need to think about that today. Did you like come up with that idea of your stories of?
They just come through at the time. I do a lot of reading and listening to things, but I am a really deep thinker. So I do jot things that I have things on my notes thinking, oh, this is coming up for me today. Right, I'll put it in, because I think as well, quite often if you are neurodiverse or creative, actually, we have so many tabs open, don't we?
Yeah.
And I think the minute I write it down, it's like I'm saying, okay, I see you, it's not going anywhere, and I can come back to it, and it chills me out. So I do have notes in it, like imposter syndrome, moving your body more, or like things crop up and I think, oh, that's a good subject to look into. So whether I'll do a podcast on it, whether I'll do it on my email list or something, it'll just pop up. But I think as well, another thing about imposter syndrome, I kept thinking, this isn't all my stuff though. This is things I've read or looked. And then I got a coach a few years ago. She's amazing, Samantha Hearn. And she'd said, that's your business. She said, if you've been to workshops and read books, that's a good thing. You're investing in yourself. No one's saying that it's got to be all your stuff. It's just all the years of, what I've consumed. But now I think it's clicked. Do you know, like the difference between reading about law of attraction and then realizing actually thoughts do become things, but we've got to do something, and it's what we do, and it's actually in the doing. And putting yourself out there. If we hadn't been vulnerable with each other, then our connection wouldn't have happened.
Because I think like when you listen to somebody on a podcast, you're a bit of a superstar to me, and I'm listening to your voice, and then I was like, I've just got it was a bit of a, I have to do it when I messaged you. And then sometimes, but the thing is that I do that because I don't think, however big a podcast is, your Instagram profile or anything like that, you're still a human being that actually needs to know that you're doing okay. And I say that on mine, if can you just let me know, or can you message me so that your orders arrived okay? Because I worry about every single one. Is it all right? Have they opened it? Is it still intact? Is it all good? And once I do that, I get more messages through. But some people just think, oh, she's, she doesn't think about it. But with you, I think I had to tell you how great those episodes were. And what was, oh my goodness, I've forgotten her name, Susie
Moore. I was just about to mention her. Susie Moore, amazing. I've just sent her to somebody else. Yeah, do you know, can I just say though, this is what I try and tell everyone, that so for me, remember when I'd done when I was like, I'm thinking about doing a podcast, you sent me the most amazing email with a picture of you and what you've done and all of that. I didn't do that. These people didn't know who I was. I hadn't got a fancy website. It's not that fancy now, but it was not that good. Didn't have a business page.
Your website is amazing, by the way.
Thank you. But just when I started out, I had nothing to send people, but I was just like, this is what I tell people. Tell people what's in your heart and what you want it to be about, because what a message from the heart goes to the heart. There's something about purpose that people go, oh, that's why. If you tell people what it is you want from something, I think people reach for that. And what I will say is, answer to you, I was like, oh my God, she's got 14,000 followers or whatever. You've got a ridiculous amount of followers, which are so deserved. But I remember someone saying to me, and it's so true, the people with the big followers are the most human. And Susie Moore, she messaged me. She didn't, there's people with 400 followers, nothing wrong with that have got somebody else asking me to do their podcast for them, like a PA. And it's going right the way through each week going, oh,
Wow.
What time? Are you going to send a Zoom? Are you going to? And it's like, do you know what? If we could just have that connection between the two of us, this book author, I don't know. I just think there's a disconnect here. And I think the one thing about COVID is we've knocked down barriers and we're realizing that these are real humans and we don't want to go to that anymore.
So you're obviously the podcast, you still absolutely adore it, like.
Yeah, to the point that, so it's been really tough that, again, coming back to our personalities, have you heard of the anagram test?
Anagram test?
I'm going to do a podcast about it. Yeah, it's big in America. It's about your personality. So they say big companies like Google, Microsoft, they all talk to that. They make everybody take, I can't say it properly, Enneagram.
When you get a colour.
You know, it's all about you're either A, B, C, and your husband, like you should do it as a married couple, you should do it as a business, and in America it's really big. So I listen a lot to Rachel Hollis. I absolutely love her. She's big in America. And she talks about it, even when you're dating, you should work out what they are. And it's just if you're a high achiever, like my husband is nothing like me, and it's so frustrating with the two of us. But it's all on the way that you work. And so take it. I'm going to do a whole podcast on this soon. And I just think it's about, and if you've got a team that work for you, getting the best from them by the way you word it. Because if you know that somebody's motivated by free time rather than money, you could say, well, I know you don't want to be doing this all day, so maybe we could just get this done in the next hour, rather than, you know, the way you would talk to someone if they're a high achiever in a kind of
you are
not being manipulative, but you need to, but we know what people's motivations are, and we're all very different. But they reckon, I think there's 7 personality types. Anyway, I've dived because I'm such a geek deep into
what's yours?
I'm just and so the point is, I have been boring everyone to tears all year about the fact that I'm having August off. I'm just working too hard. I'm taking August off. That's what I've said to everyone, and everyone's gone, yeah, of course you are. Taking August, and now it's gone. I'm taking August off, but I'm still coaching. And then it's like, I'm taking August off, but I'm still working on my new offer that's going out in 2 weeks. And it's like, but I am trying, but it's just part of your personality, isn't it? And it's kind of learning, because the trouble is when you work for yourself, you've just said you love your life, and I do, but that can be really dangerous as well. So I interviewed Tracy Vidago once. She's an amazing artist in Australia, and she does things with Elizabeth Gilbert.
Oh, wow.
She did workshops all over the world, and she said because she loved it so much, she got cancer, but she realized that she was loving life, but that energy is still high. She was jetting off around the world.
I've listened to this.
Downtime. And that's the trouble, because we're so loving it, it doesn't mean that it's all healthy, does it? So it's something we need to watch out for, and especially as, because of the background I'm from, I'm very appreciative of it, and I'm like, this is amazing, I'm living my best life, but I've got to learn to be quiet. You know what I mean?
I can never be quiet.
But just have some quiet for myself, for new magic to come in. I don't know. It's something that I need to work out, because we don't want to get poorly. And I think, I don't know, does this sound really heavy? I just think when we do work for ourselves, there's no off switch, is there? And we need to kind of you said I'm trying to work out systems. They change, the goalposts change all the time. So like this week, my children have been ill, when everything just collapses, doesn't it?
I had the same thing last week. Jackson was poorly on Friday, and I was supposed to be working, and luckily my mother-in-law lives across the road and could have him for a little while in the afternoon. But he was like thankfully it wasn't COVID. I did the test. That was fun as a 2-year-old. But he was just burning. He was, he was really, really poorly. But that's it. The time goes because I work for myself. I don't have to, my husband works for a local authority, works for the council. So he has to go in. So then it was like, oh, right, okay, that's 5 hours of work. What am I going to do? I have to fit it in some other time. And then we didn't have proper childcare for 3 months because our lovely childminder had to have an operation, and she's an absolute godsend. But those 12 weeks, it was a bit like, okay, we've not got that I had to bring in the same amount of money on half the time. That was a bit of a juggle. But I think that's with anyone working for themselves. You just, as soon as you rest, you think, oh, but I could be, or I could be doing this, or I could be, and it's always, but I could, isn't it? All the time. It takes absolute power not to.
And this is why the self-care, for me, the running, the non-negotiables. So it doesn't have to be that. It could be that you get up and you have half an hour yoga or journaling, but it needs to be non-negotiable because you are your business. Our brain is our asset. And if it doesn't get well, that's costing us money. If nothing else, obviously it's costing us happiness and all of the really good stuff. But if we're going to think in terms of business, then why aren't we putting it the most important thing, doing what we love? Because, and the thing is, there's always going to be a deadline. There's always going to be something we can improve on. And so this is why we have to. So the other thing is you should always have an A and a B. So we've got the way our business is every day, doing the orders. I've got clients and I've also got to write their notes up, but then I'm still a designer. So I've been asked to do some more Christmas for Card Factory. So I've got to do that, but that's kind of ticking your business along. But if this is a bigger thing, like I've got this launch that's going out, I want to do a membership group.
Oh, amazing. Amazing.
Because so many people come to me when I do online design courses saying, but I'm a potter or I'm a collage artist. And, and also the designers that have done the course after the 8 weeks or the 12-week course, they've said, well, I want to be part of that group. And I just want to serve people, Claire. Like, you tell me what you want to do and I'll show up. Like, I just love being part of creatives. And I don't know how to kind of carry this on that I love so much. So I was like, right, a membership. We'll do some private podcasts just for them. And, I'll have different guests on and just offer different things each month. There'll be a different subject. So, what's happiness, imposter syndrome, how, there'll be a different subject every month. But for the first few months, because obviously you want to give it to people that are what do they call it? Like the first people that will come will obviously have it discounted, but they would get more of a say. I want to bring people. I just love collaborations and I want to bring people in. And so that just feels right. I don't know the answers of how it's going to go or if it's going to go at all, but I've just got to follow that at the moment.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Oh my God. You're perfect for that. Like, it's just... Oh no, that is an amazing. Did you get all the goosebumps when you had the idea?
And I was like, this is it. This is what I need to do.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether I don't know what our train of thought was before I went into that, but it's just I love people, like you've just said, and it's part of. I think we need to understand that personality trait. That's it. So obviously, I've worked with loads of creatives in studios, and they don't like talking, and they don't like being with people. And so if you do know that's a side of you, you can't ignore that.
No. Well, I'm working on my own all the time.
It's not good.
It's like I've started seeing people, but when it was really lockdown, I think there was 1 week that my husband had to work 2 nights or 3 nights maybe. And it was like, great, but literally the whole day I was on my own. By the end of the week, I was like, I don't feel right. Like, I've been on my own too much. I'm far too sociable. That's one of the reasons, one of my whys for this podcast, because number one, I absolutely adore talking, but to share ideas with like-minded people who share those ideas, just the reason why, you started your podcast. It's just, you know, I've forgotten what train of thought we've gone on for that as well.
When you are sociable, the thing is, as well as creatives, we feed off other people. We're not good in the same scenery. That's why I noticed you've just done it with your studio. We should change things around, mix it up, because our brain sees things differently, and it's not static.
Yeah. Well, when I want to write, I go to my local Sainsbury's cafe and write there, because I can bang out 2,000 words in an hour. I don't know. It's like I walk into another universe.
Absolutely. So, and it's funny because Rachel Hollis, who I've just said I absolutely love her, she's a writer, and she talks about different practices when you write. So she says, we were talking about, the getting up at 5 a.m. Yeah. She says that she does it, that's when she writes, because it's her non-negotiable, because she can do the rest of the day is ticking off your list. But to move her business forward, what is it you want to do for next year? So for you, it's your MA. Well, how do you fit that in when all day you've got massive list of your orders? Well, if you do that in the morning, it's kind of, that's your non-negotiable. And she says that there's triggers. We can build our own happy triggers. So for you, it's a coffee shop. I like to go to Costa if I've got big writing. There's just something about it becomes a ritual, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it's
you.
Yeah. And you can make it a nice thing as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. And the same with music and I think that's a good thing about having a lockdown. We've learned to go within ourselves and what works for us. Whereas before we were all looking outwards, weren't we?
Are you still going to be teaching then? Because obviously you even said, so you do supply, don't you?
Yes, and they keep asking me to stay, and they kept saying, why have you not applied? So it's sixth form and college, and I like doing sixth form and college, but they keep asking me to apply, and I keep saying no, and I feel awful because I love it. I love it. I love the kids, love everything about it, but not as much as I love design, and I just think there's a real gap for when people come out of uni and they want to get a job, and they're the people that I love serving at the moment, you know, or the women that have had 10 years out and they've been a mum for so long and they need to get back into it. They're who I'm talking to, really. I mean, I do love young adults, but I just know what I'm like. I can't do things 50%. So I know that if I do take these jobs, I would go all in and then get sucked into the politics. And then before I know it, the coaching would go, because that's it. As mums, we've only got one cup of energy.
Oh, it's so, I mean, I ran Vivid for a year and a bit while working full time in a school. And it was really tough because I gave everything to that school. I gave everything to the kids, but it's not you do actually have to give everything, but it's not healthy, I don't think, what I did. But now I give everything to Vivid. I do miss the kids though.
Yeah, the kids are awesome, and especially when they have special days, or they just make me laugh so much. So I've said to them that I'll do 3 days a week for the next term, and then after that I'm not going to. The trouble is you don't want to kind of, when something's good, it's so hard to find things that are good. I walk all day, Claire, honestly, smiling from ear to ear, and you don't get that in every job, do you?
No.
So
no.
I know how special that is. But I also know how lucky I am because I don't get any of the other stuff. Whereas if I did say yes, I would get all of the other stuff, and then everything would change. So I'm not promoting like Go Supply, but I just get all the fun stuff, don't I?
Yeah, well, that's when I left, and it was like, well, you can always go and do supply, and it is it's a great thing to do. But I have got in my head now, I can't work for anybody else, because if I took my foot off the pedal and thought, oh, I know, it'd be fine, I'll just go into supply, I can go, then everything becomes like levels off. Then I think you have to have your foot on the pedal most of the time and then have August off. You take your pedal off for August.
Absolutely. So that's why I've said I'll only do 3 days a week for that next term, because I've got all the commitments. I still want to, I've designed for 20 years. I don't want to not do that. And I love coaching. So it's difficult as well when you are multi-passionate, because I can't just do one thing. That's probably the ADHD in me. So I have to feed off the different things. So like you say, I know I'm good with people. I love it when students bring me work and they didn't think they could do it and then they pushed through. But I also love it when a mum comes back to me and I've coached her and she tells me she's got a book deal,
Wow, yeah. How did you get into the coaching?
So a friend of mine, she was on the podcast, Josie.
Yep, I know Josie, yeah.
She's my friend's sister. So I used to live with my friend when the imposter syndrome, all the tiger print days, and she's a sister, and I've watched her go from a social worker to, she was a love coach at first, and she's just worked hard all her life, and she's so genuine. And to see that change, and I kept thinking it was all very American back then, and we didn't understand it. And then, we were, how you have a couple of friends that are into those kind of self-development books. That's those two. And then when I realized that actually it's just everything she loves and everything that she's about, and that's the same with me, I couldn't make the connection between being creative and the law of attraction stuff and self-development. That was almost like a secret to me that I was doing on the side.
Yeah.
And then when I realized that actually as creatives, if our brain's not right, we may as well not bother.
Yeah.
It's true though, isn't it?
It's so true. And I don't know about you, but it's literally, if I'm having a bad mind day, my hands don't work. Like I'm making a design that I've made 100 times, but on those days, it's like it's like not everything's. It's like there's a thread that goes through, and it's like, no, we're broken today, or we're tangled up, not going to work. Yeah.
And so Josie kept saying, so Josie gave me some coaching a few years ago, and she was like, why can't you do the coaching? And so I always wanted to do an online course. And she's like, you should do some coaching though. You should. I was like, no. And you feel a fraud. She's like, Emma, you've been in the industry for 18 years at a time. Like, what are you a fraud? You can just be a you can be a mentor if you don't want to do the coaching side. So anyway, I took the course and she was brilliant. She kept saying, just do the coaching. And then I realized that, like you just said, why is it my best ideas came when I was on holiday or at Christmas? What's that about? And it's because we're relaxed, and it's because we're not thinking of what we should do. And it was just put, like, all the little slots were coming into place. And then it's just like anything, it's not just one thing, is it? It's lots of things. The more that I did it, the more people would say, oh, Emma, you're so right. And also what I will say is, we still think that everything we've read and heard, everybody knows that now, though, don't they? And there's so many people that haven't or don't. You think what's in your head that we're all learning at the same time, and we're not.
Yeah. Oh, and you just...
Or there'll be someone that will message me and say, really needed to hear that today. And I also think as well, a lot of my hardship and battles, I don't know if it's actually helping me, that it's like, because I didn't realize as well, a lot of teachers, not teachers in schools, but just leaders or teachers, have had really hardship, and we just think it's just us, and there's so much shame around it. And actually, no.
Yeah. Well, we've spoken before about where, if you showed a child about the fact that they shouldn't have shame about what they've been through, and actually it's their superpower because they survived it, there's so much beauty in giving strength to children that have been through that. But that's what my master's is about. That's taken me 5-6 years, and I'm a month away from finishing it. It's like the best bloody feeling ever.
But groundbreaking things don't just happen overnight. Honestly,
I remember when I first started.
I cried when you told me about this.
Yeah, I know. But I said to my husband when I first started it, maybe I'll do a PhD after this. And now if I ever mention to anyone I'm going to do a PhD, just slap me because it's not happening. It's such a stressful situation to juggle everything, and I've got my work, as you know, I've got my work down that road, and me and my husband have set up a training company to do that kind of thing and work with people, because he does all the adult stuff exactly the same, and he's an absolute expert in it all. But I think that I just the vivid stuff, like you were saying, and it's helping people. I think the workshops I've been doing recently of just being able to teach somebody something new, it's like bringing the both stuff, amazing worlds together. But the confidence that you give somebody and giving that little spark because they've learned something new is just amazing. But I think doing that for children is utterly amazing. I'm saying amazing a lot, but it is brilliant. But for adults, to make them realise they can still learn, even doesn't matter how old they are.
Yeah, and there's so many adults that have come to me after the podcast and said, Emma, I didn't realise how locked in I was, how I had to be perfect. You know, my marriage is split up. But, you know, just women that have come into themselves and started listening to the inner voice that they've been ignoring for years. And that is just wonderful. That not wonderful what they've been through, but, you know, that they're actually stepping into where they should be. And I don't know if it's a British thing or we're just evolving a lot more, aren't we? But what I will say is with the whole PhD, the world's moved on so much that you will still have so much to give. Like I've just been booked by a couple of universities. They want me to go and speak. So
really amazing.
What I mean about your podcast, when your thesis goes out, it will be a book. And, you know, you are opening a whole chapter that now we live in a time that it isn't just PhD anymore.
No, well, I did tell you about the other book I'm writing, didn't I?
Yes, I didn't want to say anything.
Well, I just feel like it's such a, you know, when you've got an idea and it's so freaking precious that if you share it, it's just might not come true or something. I don't know. But I've literally maybe I've only told a couple of people, but that as soon as the masters is finished, it's Christmas. I mean, I'm already starting to prepare for Christmas with regards to orders and stuff. I love Christmas. Oh my God, I love it all. But I am going to be, you know, taking massive action on this book and then it was like, oh, I don't really need it to be published. And I was like, why not? Why can't I have my book published? And then all the stuff about the trauma will come after that, because I'll have got my head round. I don't know, you know, when you study that much in about something, and as you know, it's quite personal. So I need to sort of do that book and then move on to this second one. But yeah, it's amazing. I keep saying amazing. It's such a lush word. It's just like,
I say amazing.
But this is what, when I've ever spoken to you, you just make me feel like I've got amazing superpowers. I could go.
You have.
No, but you have. That's how you make people feel.
Thank you. I think the thing is though with books, because I've been asked about writing one and I'd love to, but then I would tell everyone everything, but then you think about family members and then you're like, oh, like I had to message my brother when I'd put something on the stories about being adopted. Like that's when it gets complicated, isn't it? When it's and it is a big thing, but like we've said about the podcast, when it becomes not about you anymore, it's this urge and you just need one person to read it, like how we felt over Susie Moore.
And
for the world.
Absolutely. And I've still got that post-it note that I wrote following listening to that podcast episode about showing what you can do is the most generous place to be. You know, if you can do it, then they can do it too. But isn't that right? It's just about the mindset of saying, why not me? When you have those negative thoughts, why can't I do it? But it does take a lot of work, but it's so worth it. It's so worth. I don't think there's ever a minute that I've spent like as you know, I write all the time, every day, or having that time like you do, you running. You never ever regret taking that time to make sure your mind's healthy, do you? So before we go, I just want to, this has been amazing, absolutely. Like, by the way, just thank you. I'm so
I've
grateful
loved
for you
it.
spending the time, especially because both your babies are poorly and you're proper mumming it today and making sure. And as we've been talking, there's been snacks going here, snacks going there, Lego flying. So I'm so grateful, Emma, for being here. But if you could tell your younger self one thing, and maybe like at a particular age, what would you tell yourself that you know now?
That success isn't one thing, it's lots of choices, and it's not a make or break. You've got to be vulnerable, and it's not if you say no to something, it's not, oh my God, that one chance is gone.
Yeah.
There will be more. And it's about kind of going easy on yourself and just, develop yourself, and the rest will come.
Yeah. Oh, Emma, do you know, I feel quite emotional because it's like we've done a podcast episode for my podcast.
I feel really emotional that you're doing this. Honestly, I'm so happy.
Amazing, absolutely amazing, love.
You are. Can I just say, you are such a wonderful host, and everyone's just gonna buzz off listening to you every week. You have opened a big can of worms now.
Oh God, yeah, it's going to be so much fun though. I can just like.
I mean it in a good thing. Yeah.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I hope you've enjoyed listening to it, everybody. But
I love it.
So where can people find you, Emma?
They can find me over at Emma Isaacs Designs on Instagram, and then obviously website Emma Isaacs, and that's spelled ISAACS. I was married for about 2 years before I could spell that. And then there's obviously Creative Ways Podcast, and come and find me, and I love to chat, as you can hear.
Yeah, Creative Ways Podcast, absolutely. There's a really good episode with someone called Claire Hill. She's really good.
It's so good. So many people did you get a lot of people message you about that episode?
No, not really.
Oh, I thought I sent them you. Yeah, there's a couple that messaged me.
Really? Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Because we were crying through that as well. We're just shouldn't we? It's good though. Yeah. It's all good. Thank you, darling. Yeah. And hope the babies get better.
Yeah. Wherever they are. Bye.
See you later, babe. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the No Rest for the Vivid podcast. Written, produced and hosted by Claire Hill, and music has been composed by my brother, Phil Vidler.